Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, and I want to thank you guys for watching my videos. Today's video is going to be about me getting stabbed 33 times when I was only 16 by my ex-boyfriend and how he murdered my cousin. I know you guys seen an interview on Trapping Anonymous, and I felt like I had to make this video because to get more into detail, because I was getting attacked by a lot of people. They couldn't understand how I was still in contact with the guy who stabbed me 33 times and killed my cousin after it happened and stuff like that. So I'm here to explain everything from my point of view and why things went the way they did, and so on and so on. So as I stated before, him and I met when I was on my way upstate to go do my time at a juvenile detention center for making a direct sale to an undercover cop. He was on his way home from doing his time. He was actually in there for selling drugs too. We met in the transportation van. The van driver let us exchange phone numbers and so on. So after we exchanged phone numbers, while I was doing my bid, he actually used to send me letters, and he was actually in the army, going to the Army Reserve and going into the army and stuff like that. He was on the right track. Like, he had good parents, he had a good mom and a good dad that were trying to steer him in the right direction, I guess, so that he wouldn't end up back in jail. And so he was doing good, the last that I heard. And then I had to cut off all communication because I was getting in trouble for having a non-family member contact me while I was in there. So if I wanted to get out, I had to cut him off. So I did, and I lost all communication. Then shortly after, I come home, and the conditions that I came home to were the conditions that actually led me in jail in the first place, which was poverty. I was really, really poor. As soon as I got home, my mom, she was on psych meds, so she was sleeping all day, and she just wasn't herself. She was just sleeping all day. The house, there was dirt piled up in the corners of the walls and stuff like that. She wasn't cleaning, she wasn't her usual self, and things were actually worse. And I remember asking her, coming home, and I'm like, Mom, where's my clothes? And she was sleeping, and she pointed to a garbage bag. And man, in that garbage bag, there was nothing but rags in there. I cried. I literally didn't have a fresh outfit or a clean outfit, no panty, no bra, no nothing to put on after being released from the juvenile facility. It was that bad. Eventually, my brother was working at Foot Locker, and he did buy me 2 pairs of outfits from the store Pretty Girl and a pair of pink Converse sneakers. So that was all I had when I first came home. The aftercare program, they gave me a couple gift cards and stuff, but it wasn't really a lot. And I was 16 at the time, so they were trying to get me to get a job and stuff like that. But I was already used to the fast money selling drugs, so I just end up selling drugs again. I end up going to the block. I used to be scared as heck. The last thing I wanted was to go back to the block and sell drugs after I just did a bid for doing that, but I felt like I had no choice. And at that time, I hated working day shifts. So the people that we used to work for, because I was a worker, unfortunately I did not sell my own work, and every time I tried, it never went well, which I got stories about that too. But I always chose night shift, because night shift, there were more people outside and stuff like that. During the day, I just feel like it was hotter, the block was hotter, and it was just you couldn't, and so many people even more outside. You know how the New York City streets are, it's just always crowded, and it was harder to identify a cop. And the last thing I wanted to do was work day shift, but that was the only shift that was available at the time. So I ended up going back on the block. While I was on the block, I was petrified, but I was out there. And like 3 months later, I end up getting in contact with like my ex-boyfriend. So yeah, I did try to go to school and stuff, but while I was in the juvenile facility, they had skipped me from the 7th grade, which is the grade that I dropped out of to sell drugs. And I ended up making my way to the 10th grade in there by studying really hard and stuff. But the problem was, in the short time frame, I skipped like 3-4 grades, and I didn't retain any of the information. So when I went to high school was really complicated for me. It was just like I didn't know how to navigate the high school, on how to switch classes. The math classes were extremely hard. Again, I was a bum again, so I didn't fit in and stuff like that. And it was just those type of things that led me back into selling drugs again. So shortly, like 3 months after, I get this phone call from the guy. His name was Sammy. But his nickname was Jay. And I get a phone call from him, and he's just like, "Hey, do you remember me?" We still had house phones at this time. And he called my house phone, and I picked up, and he's like, "Do you remember me?" And at first I didn't, but then like he said Jeremy, and I thought it was this guy Jeremy, which seemed to be like the demon that I freaking met, that got in him in the juvenile facility one time, which was a crazy supernatural story. I gotta tell you guys in a different video on how this guy Jeremy, I thought that's who he was, but I never exchanged information, like contact info with that guy. So I don't know why, but I just didn't know that they used to call him Jeremy and stuff like that. But anyway, long story short, it ended up being him, the guy, the love of my life. I used to have his picture on my desk, like in the juvenile facility. I couldn't wait for him to get home so we could finally be together. Like, this was like, he was just so cute. I remember how we first met in the transportation van, and no matter that I was just like a boy or nothing, he was still attracted to me. At this time, I started dressing like a girl more because I actually ended up wanting to show off my curves and stuff. Like, while I was in the juvenile facility, my body matured a little bit, and I realized like I had a little bit more hips and a little bit more breasts, and I actually didn't want to be a tomboy anymore, and I wanted to start dressing like a girl. So yeah, so I remember that, and I remember like the letters that he used to write me. I remember how he told me that he had joined the army and stuff while I was incarcerated and stuff like that. So I was excited to hear from him. I'm like, oh my god, like, my bae, like, what's up? Like, what's up, bae? Where you at? Wait, the first thing I was trying to find out was like, where you at? And come to find out, he was only like a couple blocks away. He was renting a room on 173rd and Toppin, and I used to live on 176 and Anthony, 176th Street and Anthony in the Bronx, over there by Tremont and stuff. And so he was like basically walking distance for me. And so come to find out, we went to meet up, and that very same night, like, I never went back home. We ended up staying up all night talking and catching up and having sex. And oh my gosh, it was just like, that same night, it was like maybe 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. He told me he had this girlfriend, and I remember making him call this girl and break up with her because like we were gonna be together, and like there's no doubt about it. Like, and ever since that day, he was on the phone, he was crying. I feel so bad now that we're older. I feel so bad that he broke up with this girl, because his life probably would have went in a whole different direction versus being with me, you know what I mean? And yeah, like, we was just together. Like, from that day on, we was just together. The only issue was that I was on the block selling drugs because I felt like I had no choice and I didn't know any better. But he was actually going to college to fix airplanes, and he was working as a mechanic with his dad and stuff. Like, he had a good mom and a good dad that were like leading him in the right direction, or trying to anyway, and stuff like that. So that's how our life was. Like, immediately I ended up, because I was already kind of on the run from like aftercare, because I ended up dropping out of school and not doing anything that they wanted me to. So when I moved in with him, I officially like basically went on the run from them. Even though I was right down the block from where my mom used to live, it's like they couldn't get in contact with me or anything. And I was already like starting to live that life again or whatever. So, you know, as I stated, I didn't really want to be out there. So eventually, you know, he used to wake up, he used to go to school and work, and I used to go hit the block and stuff like that. And as time went by, you know, he started feeling like a chump. Like, what? How am I the man in this relationship? And how am I the man in this relationship, but my girlfriend is the drug dealer on the block? Like, he's just like, he started feeling like a little feminine and stuff. And I guess so. One day he just woke up and he's like, man, he's like, listen, I don't want you out there no more on the block. Like, I feel better if I'm out there with you, or if I do it and you don't have to do it no more and stuff like that. And I was only 16 years old and he was 18. And I actually met him when I was 15. Yeah, and then, you know, he was 17. But yeah, so, you know, like, I honestly didn't really have no guidance or know any better at that time, to the point where I just agreed to it. And I was just like, okay, F it. Like, I was scared to be out there by myself anyway, you know what I mean? So he just like one day, just from one day to the next, he just like quit his job and stopped going to school, and he was just like hitting the block with me or whatever. So I introduced him to the people that I was working for, and they started giving him work, and I just used to stand out there and like hold him down. And you know, I knew the customers knew me, and I knew where to stash the work and stuff like that. So yeah, like, and then my best friend at the time, he knew my best friend. They knew each other because they were locked up together before. So it just all went so good together. Like, so there, you know, we're hustling and stuff like that. We're getting this money or whatever. And throughout it all, me and him, we're falling more deeply in love, because it's just like we had like this gangster relationship, this Bonnie and Clyde type of relationship and stuff. So then we go to making the next step in our commitment, to where it was my idea to get each other's name tatted. I think it was his idea to get each other's name tatted, but it was my idea to get it on our necks. He wanted to get it on his arm and stuff like that. And yeah, so, you know, as you can see, I'm actually in the process of getting it, covered it up for the second or third time, because I have a whole nother YouTube video showing you guys my tattoos and what they mean or how they came about and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I used to have his name right here. It was Sammy. And as far as I'm concerned, until this day, he still has my name, Ophelia, on his neck. So when his mom seen his name, that we had each other's name on our necks, she was like, oh no. Like, I don't think she really approved of our relationship, because she already seen how I was kind of leading her son in the wrong direction. Like, you know, especially once we got the names on our necks, that just like topped it off. But so yeah, we were like hustling on the block. But then one day, him and you know, they decided that they wanted to start putting, because when my ex-boyfriend used to sell drugs, he was used to selling his own work. So he was used to like getting the real money and stuff. Meanwhile, I was only used to working for someone, so I was used to getting that percentage. In the Trapping Anonymous, I said 40%, but it wasn't 40%. I meant like $40 a pack, which a pack came in like 14 dime bags. So I was to return $100 and then keep 40. But that was when I first started hustling. At this time, when I was hustling with him, they was giving me up to $60 a pack. So I would get bundles of 16 dime bags, and I would keep 60 bags, $60, 6 bags, and returned 100. So believe it or not, those bundles used to go fast as heck, especially once you're known, because I was already known to have it. Like, the customers knew me from before I got locked up and stuff. So it just used to go fast as heck. Like when I first started hustling, before I knew anything about that, I used to have trouble getting rid of it. But once I became like known and stuff, it just used to go fast as heck. But for some reason, it just wasn't enough money for him, so it's like, man, like I need more money than this now that I quit my job and stuff. Like, this is not enough. Like, so he came up with this idea that he was gonna get the same color baggies and bag up his own work. But then, the people we were working for, they started noticing because we started returning less money to them. And so long story short, one day this is when, before, at this time, the blocks in New York used to be crowded with people. Like, this is before the trespassing law passed, and people just used to stand in, like, we used to be on the block 24/7, like millions of people. And then all of a sudden around this time, they started passing this trespassing law that you couldn't stand in front of the building for too long, or the police would come and make you move or whatever. So that day we were standing in front of the building, and the police is like, yeah, y'all can't stand here or whatever. So when they used to do that, we just used to walk around the block for like 20 minutes and then come back. But we used to keep the work stashed in the building or whatever. So the people I used to work for, of course, they knew my stash spot because they taught me how to hustle, so, and where to put it, like. And so that one day while we was walking around the block, the person we were working for, they went into the building and they got the work, and they realized that it wasn't their work or whatever. So then we got banned from the block, and it was like, yeah, no, y'all can't hustle there no more. Like, y'all violated, you feel me? So long story short, there's a whole nother story that I didn't want to talk about in the Trapping Anonymous video, but after getting confirmation from the person that it all happened with, like the people I used to work for and stuff, he gave me permission to release that information in this book that I'm writing. So I won't make a YouTube video on that story, but I will be telling this story that I was too scared to mention in the Trapping Anonymous video because I thought that it was very dangerous to do so. And at that time, I wasn't in contact with the person I used to work for, so I didn't know if we were on good terms or not. But since then, they've forgiven me, we've talked, and I am on good terms with them, and they actually gave me permission to tell the story. Of course, I'm still not gonna get into detail, like mentioning names or anything like that, but yeah, I can finally tell you guys what actually happened. But anyway, we did something that had our heads on the wall. So like basically we had to go on a run because people were looking for us to kill us. Like, when I mean kill us, I mean kill us. We violated big time, like, you feel me? And so we had to go on the run. So it was just really bad. Like, even before we went on the run, our room that we were renting got broken into, and they came and took all the money we had stashed and all of his stuff. He had like really nice shoes and jewelry and all of this, and somebody robbed us. So we was going through that. On top of, after that happened, then the people that was renting us the room didn't want us to stay there no more. So we was going through like homelessness and stuff. So we was trying to still sell work on the other blocks, because once we got banned from that block, we still was trying to sell work on like Weeks and 240 and those kind of blocks or whatever, like the surrounding areas. Because of course, I say, I like in one of my songs, I'm like, yeah, I'm from 175 in Monroe where the guns popping. Really, I'm from 176 in Anthony, but I'm really from all around those blocks, like Weeks Avenue, Clay, Tremont, all of them blocks. Because for real, like, I hustled on each and every one of those blocks and stuff, so I consider myself to just be from that general area in general. So I rep all those blocks, like, you feel me? But really, again, I'm from 176 in Anthony. But yeah, so so we had started like getting money on the other blocks and stuff like that, but it just wasn't working out. Like, we wasn't getting as much for a pack and stuff like that, and we was going through a lot of stress. And then once that situation happened where they were looking for us to kill us, we had to go on the run. So the only place that he could think of for us to go, because I only knew those four corners in my hood, I didn't know nothing about nothing else at that point. Like, I literally, my mind used to be so small that all I knew was those four corners and that hood. Like, I didn't know about nothing else in the world. Like, seriously, like, no other boroughs, no nothing. Like, this is where I come from. Like, so you guys gotta hear my success story. Like, you guys I gotta release these videos because, like, trust me, not too many people make it out from where I come from and stuff. Like, you know, and, so yeah, long story short though, you know, we went on a run and we ended up going to his side of the town, like, which was Bronx River Projects, which was the South Bronx, which I didn't know nothing about. But his sister actually had her boyfriend, his brother actually had a trap house in the projects over there that we actually went to, and we asked permission to stay there. At first, the mother was being my ex's mother was being very supportive, and she was letting us stay with her and stuff. But like, we were just like, we weren't the best influence. Like, he had little sisters and we used to be all up on each other. That wasn't good for his little sisters to see. Then when we got the names tatted on the necks, that wasn't good. And we used to smoke weed and drink at that time, and we just weren't a good influence. So the mom eventually had to tell us, you know, like, y'all gotta get your own spot again or whatever. But unfortunately, like, we end up going to stay at the trap house. So the proposal was, especially because we were desperate and we were on the run, the proposal was that we could stay there in the empty room, because it was like a 2-bedroom apartment, and it was just a trap house where people hustled out of. Nobody was actually staying there. So the deal was that we can stay there, but we had to, like, manage that spot. We had to sell drugs there in exchange for a place to live and barely no money. So, you know, so we started staying there, and while we were staying there, you know, we started experimenting with other drugs like angel dust and coke and stuff like that. Well, he didn't experiment with coke, but I did, because I already had in the past with, like, the dudes from my block, like when I was like 14 and stuff like that. And they was teaching me how to bag up and stuff like that. They had introduced me to that. So I was just doing it with his sister, just kind of to prove to her that I wasn't scared to do it, because I was so young. I was like 16. And so yeah, we was basically staying there. We were like partying, doing drugs, living there, and things just started getting really hard for him. Like, I can tell that, like, he was going through a lot. First of all, I started feeling smothered. Even before we moved there, I started feeling smothered, because he used to, like, I remember, like, one Thanksgiving, he told me that I could go out, but because I was telling him, like, I needed some space, because we was together like 24/7. Like, we never got no space from each other. Like, we was together 24/7, and he used to be all up on me. Like, he was just like a child that wanted to be all up on me 24/7. And at the time, I loved him and everything. It was cool, but I just started to feel kind of smothered a little bit, you know, like I just needed some fresh air and stuff. And, like, from going through the molestation and stuff that I went through in my past, you know, like, having so much sex sometimes wasn't always satisfying to me, even though it is satisfying, but it wasn't just all the time like that. It was just like, I kind of was still dealing with trauma from my past as being a molested child, a sexual abuse victim and stuff like that. So long story short, I got this loose hair in my nose, and it's like, it been bugging me all day. But yeah, so long story short, you could tell, like, okay, so basically he went from, like, having this nice jewelry to having all these nice clothes and stuff to basically, we were like bums for real. We basically, now let me tell you, like, with him, he used to spoil me. He used to give me whatever I wanted. It was like, he loved me so much that, like, he really, like, anything I wanted. Like, I remember for Christmas, when we were already on the run and stuff, I wanted this puppy. And this was right before I got stabbed. because the stabbing happened January 20th, 2005. And I got stabbed in December of, I mean, sorry, we got the puppy of that Christmas or whatever. So he like got me this puppy, and like he bought me shoes, and he bought me a North Face coat. I remember I used to want a North Face coat so bad because the first one that I had, somebody took it away from me, but that was my first North Face coat. But this, it wasn't really mine because the girl came and took it from me, which that's a whole nother story, which I mentioned it in the book. I'm not making a YouTube video on that, but there was a lady who took me in when I was 14 years old. And yeah, I'll be mentioning her in the book. But yeah, long story short, so yeah, bought me like, you know, my first North Face coat. Like, just like, he used to spoil me. He'll do anything. And like, whenever he didn't want to do something that I wanted, all I had to say was, oh, I'm gonna break up with you, I don't want to be with you no more. And he'll just be like, okay, here, you know, like, what do you want? Here, anything you want. Like, so I used to threaten him a lot with the wanting to break up with him stuff, which I know was getting to him around this time. And also, you know, like, they used to joke around, and they used to call me Clyde and him Bonnie, because they used to say like, dang, your girl's more gangster than you. Because I remember, for the situation that I'm going to be mentioning in the book, the thing that almost got us killed, when it was time for us to get a gun or whatever, and I wanted the gun so bad that I was like, yeah, I'm gonna shoot it, and I'm gonna do this and that. And they were like amping me up, and he was just like, I was just like talking all this gangster stuff, and he really wasn't. So yeah, they used to like, everything about me, they just used to say, like, joke around on him, like, yeah, you know, she's more gangster than you. And they basically call him like feminine and stuff like that, which I see that at that time was getting to him too, like, you know. And I was just this like wannabe gangster at this time, so I used to like go along with it, and they used to like amp me up too, like, you know. So then now I start treating him like that, and I'm like bullying him a little bit, like, babe, come on, you ain't like that, like, you know, like, whatever, like, or when he used to like complain about little stuff, I'd be like, come on, stop complaining like a little bee or whatever, like that. Like, I started like kind of bullying him a little bit and stuff like that. So we were going through a lot of stress. On top of that, we were barely eating because we were barely making enough money for food. Then I started like the white girl or whatever, like, I started actually getting kind of hooked on it now, because I was doing it so much with his sister. And I remember like a couple times, like, the money that we needed the money for food, but I would be like, babe, just give me the bag, you know. And a lot of times he'll be like, no, we need this money for food, and I'm like, babe, no, give it to me, I don't want to be with you no more. And actually, that's actually what happened the night that I got stabbed. But before I get into that, I want to tell you guys, like, this guy never put his hands on me. He never yelled at me. He never called me any cuss words. He never showed no type of violence towards me. The only crazy thing that I remember from him was the one time that I wanted to go out, and I found him following me. Like, I literally took a cab, jumped in a taxi and everything, and he was following me. Like, I'll look back behind me, and he's like hiding behind a corner and stuff like that. So that was like the most craziest thing. And then also, like, once he bought me that puppy for Christmas time, I seen like how jealous he was getting over the puppy. Like, he started feeling like, he even brought it up to me a couple times, like, you showing the puppy more love than me, like. And I'm like, what? It's a puppy, like. And it was kind of true, though. I was really overprotective over the puppy because I love the puppy so much. And then, like, he used to try to pet the puppy, and I'm like, no, this is my puppy, and stuff like that. And that really bothered him, you know. And so, yeah, like, this guy, though, he was like the best boyfriend that I ever had at the time, because none of my boyfriends, I mean, not really, because I actually left a good boyfriend to be with him too. Like, my homegirls had hooked me up with this Dominican guy that worked in a mechanic shop and stuff, he was like really good to me and stuff like that. But the problem with us was that he didn't speak no English and my Spanish sucks. So I found it difficult to communicate with him. And so anyway, regardless, there was no way in the world that I wasn't gonna be with the guy that held me down while I was in jail, that sent me pictures, that I used to lust over his picture on my desk every day. Like, there was no way in heck that I wasn't gonna end up with that guy anyway, you know. But yeah, so this guy was actually really a good guy. But yeah, like, I just started feeling smothered, and then, you know, I started bullying him a little bit. And, you know, like, I realized that I can sound very verbally abusive with my words sometimes towards people, especially like even my kids sometimes, which I've been working on that crazy. And even like myself, or especially like my boyfriends and stuff, sometimes I get really like, like for example, my last baby father, the reason we fell out is because I told him that his D is whack, like that he basically sucks in the bed or whatever. And that after I told him that, there was just like no coming back from that and stuff like that, you know. So stuff like that, that's the type of verbally abusive that I am, you know. So yeah, like, so things were just really bad. Then like, I don't know, I just started, something about him started turning me off. Like, he started looking different to me. Like, he started looking like his eye was cocked a little bit more. Terry, let the dogs back in. He started looking like his eyes were cocked a little bit more and stuff like that, you know. Like, he just started looking different. It was like almost, Dante, he was almost like, there was almost like a demon was inside of him, for real. Like, it was just like, I don't know. And I started feeling like a bad feeling. It was just like, the feeling I thought that I was feeling was like that we were gonna get raided, you know what I mean? Like, we were about to get raided and stuff. But I guess the feeling that I was actually feeling was that he was going to end up doing what he did that night or whatever. But yeah, like, you know, at this point, I was turned off by him. He had got me the puppy. And my cousin, so a little backstory about my cousin. I met my cousin when I was 12. One day my cousin just pops up out of nowhere, and my mom tells me that this is her brother's son and that this is my biological cousin. We got the same last name and everything. But the day that my cousin, I first met him, it was just like when he first, because we used to live on the 4th floor in a building, and the second he got to the top of the stairs, I was standing at the doorway, and he just couldn't stop staring at me. It was like he was mesmerized by my beauty. And my whole life, you know, I was always complimented on my beauty and stuff like that. So yeah, anyway, I met him. And unfortunately, you know, like, when we first met, one day, me and my two smaller brothers, we were play fighting and stuff along with him. And it got to the point where when we were playing, you know, my cousin kind of got a little bit tried to get a little bit intimate with me and tried to like stick his penis in my vagina or whatever the case may be. And you know, it didn't happen. And I was just like, no. I stopped him and I'm like, no, you're my cousin. Like, what? Like, no. You know what I mean? So it didn't happen. And after that, he never tried it again. It never happened again. And after that, like, me and him, we just became like best friends. Like, I never, growing up in the foster care system and stuff, like, or just my mom being like a drug addict, I never really got to meet or get personal with any of my other family members. Like, so as far as I'm concerned, he's the only family member biological that I ever met with my actual last name and everything. Like, I did meet a couple of my other cousins from my mother's other brother that's a lawyer and stuff, but like, we never really like built a relationship or anything. I only remember meeting them when I was younger, quickly and stuff like that. So my cousin was my everything. Like, I remember him being my best friend. Like, we used to like, he kind of initiated me into the blood gang, because he was supposedly this blood member, and you could see the burn mark where he actually burned me with the cigarette. He only gave me one burn for me to be like, oh heck no, this is not for me. Then the other 2 burns were done lightly. This is back when blood still had the 3 burns or whatever. I don't even know if he knew what he was talking about, but he was my big cousin, and I was just like, you know, going along with whatever and believing him. I actually used to look up to him and stuff. This is actually him, this rest in peace poet, you know, because he used to write poetry and he used to love Tupac and stuff like that. But anyway, my cousin, he was real handsome. He was tall, really tall and skinny and really humble. Like, his name was Johnny. He was just like really quiet and humble and stuff like that, especially when I started bringing him. Sorry guys, the last video cut out, but yeah, I was talking about my cousin, and yeah, like especially when I started bringing him around. So one day, you know, my mom calls. I call her because even though we was on the run, I used to stay in touch with my mom, and I call her and I'm like, Mom, you know, how you doing? She's like, yeah, you know, your cousin's here and he's eating up all my food, and you know, I'm not getting as much food stamps no more. So, you know, like, yeah, I don't know what to do. I might have to tell him to leave and stuff. I'm like, man, just tell him to come over here where we at or whatever. Like, he could come get money with us, because we was, you know, I could have put him to get some money or whatever and stuff like that. And yeah, and I was messing around with that white and stuff like that. And I think I remember kind of doing that with him in the past or something like that. So I knew like he was down with that too. So I'm like, yeah, just tell him to come over here or whatever. So long story short, you know, my mom, he ends up coming over. But like around this time, our relationship, like my cousin, how it was is he used to come and stay with us for a little bit. I don't know if I mentioned this already because the video cut off, but he used to come stay with us. Like, since I've known him since the age of 12, he'll come stay with us for like a month or two weeks and stuff, and then leave. And it'll always just be like that, I guess, you know, because he didn't really have nowhere to go or whatever, and then he'll find somewhere to go and he'll leave and stuff. But then around this time though, like, I haven't seen him in so long because he already had like a child, and he was, you know, his baby mom and stuff like that. So I haven't seen him in so long. So I was actually excited to see him and hear from him and stuff, like, you know, because he was my cousin, my only family member besides my brothers and stuff that I knew, like one of my only cousins and stuff that I actually knew. And, you know, we shared the same last name. So long story short, you know, we had an extra room there because it was a 2-bedroom. And my boyfriend, you know, I told my boyfriend about it. But in the past, I had told my boyfriend on how the situation with how we almost had intercourse happened and stuff like that. And he already didn't like my cousin, you know what I mean? So my cousin ended up coming, but the whole time that my cousin is there, like, my ex-boyfriend, he's just being completely mean to him, like just saying rude jokes on the side of under his breath, or, you know, on the side real quick, or just like being mean to him, like. And I kind of seen that he was doing that, so just to get on my ex's nerves, like just to make him feel some type of way, because I was young and immature, I would like kind of be all up on my cousin, like, I love you cousin, I love you cousin, I miss you cousin. And I remember there was like this electronic nose hair like shaver thing, and I remember like shaving my initials in his arm hair and stuff like that. And I remember like my ex-boyfriend, that really bothering him, like, why did you do that? And I don't know, like, if in my boyfriend's head he thought that I actually had something going on with my cousin, especially after the story that I told him. But yeah, no, like that wasn't the case at all, you feel me? So yeah, like, on top of that, like, we was already going through the stress of not eating and stuff like that. So I think like we ended up getting into a couple arguments to where my ex-boyfriend let it be known, like, he kind of felt unappreciated, like, after he did all of that for me. Like, he basically ended up quitting his job and stop going to school and everything to start a life with me, which wasn't the most stable life and stuff like that. And I honestly think that he regretted it. He started regretting it, especially the night that I got stabbed. So here we go. So the night that we had got stabbed, we was going through it tough. Like, this is when every time the last bag was left, I wanted it to use it rather than to use the money for food. And he was like, come on, babe, like, we need the money for food, like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, nah, like, like, give it to me, baby, I don't want to be with you no more. And it took me years to actually remember this, because in the beginning I couldn't remember what actually happened that night and what led to the stabbing. Like, my brain just wouldn't let me remember, but it took me years to remember that this is exactly what happened. So then I think I was also too embarrassed to tell the truth of the story, that I was on White Girl and I wanted the last bag and stuff like that. But yeah, so I wanted the last bag, and I was just like, well, if you don't give it to me, then I don't want to be with you no more. And I think at this point, he was just fed up with it all. And he's like, I don't care. Like, I'm not giving it to you. So then he was like, oh, you don't want to be with me no more? Oh, yeah. So he basically left. He left the room. And he, all I heard was like the knife, like the drawer open up, which I remember there used to be a bunch of knives and utensils in there and stuff like that. And I just remember hearing scrambling in the drawer, like a bunch of metal clinging and stuff like that. And then he just comes back and he has all these knives and stuff, and he's just like, I remember sitting on the ground, and we were sitting on the ground, and he just like threw the knives on the ground and he put them to the side of him, and he's like, oh, so you don't want to be with me no more? And I'm like, yeah, no, like, I don't want to be with you no more. Like, you don't want to give me that last bag? Like, nah, I'm good. And for some reason, I just never thought in a million years that he would actually harm me or anything like that. So basically, I didn't think that he would harm me or anything like that. So I just kept like, yeah, no, I don't want to be with you no more and stuff. So then that's when he asked me a few more times. He's like, so you sure you don't want to be with me no more? Like, you serious? Like, you serious? And then after like 3 times of asking me, he was like, well, I just remember like his eyes kind of going blank, like black, like it's just like he had no pupil and his eyes just went black. And he was like, well, if you don't want to be with me no more, if I can't have you, nobody can. And he stabbed me for the very first time. He stabbed me somewhere in my front. And yeah, like, I have the scar. I still have scars. And believe it or not, he just kept going and going. Like, you can still see some of the stab wounds. This is from when he was still catching me from the front. Because he, like, when he stabbed me the first time, I was just like shocked. I couldn't move. I was just like really? I couldn't talk. I couldn't move or anything. So then he kept going. So he started stabbing me. Like, he just kept going. And then finally I snapped out of it and I tried blocking him. And that's when I put my hand up. And if you could see, like, when I put my hand up to try to stop a block, he kind of caught my finger and my finger fell. My finger came off, and all I see is my bone, and I see blood splurging, and I see white. I don't know if that was the bone or the nerve. I see white and blood splurging. So then I look at my finger. Now I'm really into shock, and he just keeps stabbing. So then, before you know it, all I remember is I'm like, I can't stop him. He's too strong, because he was still built, like, from all the training that he received from the army. Like, he was like really muscular and stuff like that. So he was really strong and stuff like that. So then I just start taking him on my back. I just turn around and I just start taking him on my back. And he just keeps going and he just keeps going. And I'm just like, oh, I couldn't take it no more and stuff. And I just remember him stopping and saying, like, oh, well, if I can't have you, nobody can have you. And like, oh my God, he was like, oh my God, your cousin is here and he's gonna snitch on me. So then I remember him stopping to stab me. And at that very moment, I wanted to yell, I wanted to scream, but I was in fear and I was still in shock from everything. All I see is a bunch of blood around me. The little puppy, there was paw prints, bloody paw prints everywhere. Like, all I see is puddles of blood. Mind you, I've never seen anything like this in my life. I've never been stabbed in my life, any of that. Like, I've never even been, for real, and barely any fights at that time in my life, for real. So I was just in complete shock. And I wanted to yell or say something, but like my body, my brain wanted to, but my body wouldn't let me. Like, so I'm like trying to, I just like, oh my God, I have my cousin, and I wanted to say like, Johnny, or help, like, Johnny, be careful, but like I couldn't. And I was already weak. I was already stabbed so many times. And I just couldn't. I know a lot of people were attacking me because they're like, oh, you could have said something. You could have said something to your cousin. And in reality, like, no, I really couldn't. Like, even if I wanted to, like, even if I felt like I wanted to, for some reason, it wouldn't come out. Like, I felt like I wanted to, but for some reason, the words just wouldn't come out. Like, and then all I remember is him leaving out the room. He's bloody everywhere. He looks crazy. He had a white tank top and some jeans on, and he just looked crazy. There's blood everywhere, and he just leaves the room, and all I hear is like fumbling, like struggling, a little struggling or whatever. And I don't hear no screaming. I don't hear no arguing or nothing. I just hear stumbling. And then about 5 minutes later, he comes back, and he's all bloody even more. And he has the knife in his hand, and he's holding his head, pacing back and forth. And he's like, oh my God, Ma, I killed your cousin. Oh my God, he's dead. He's not breathing. Oh my God. So then it was like a horror movie. He just comes back and he's like, now I gotta kill you too because you're gonna snitch on me. So then he just comes back and starts stabbing me even more. Mind you, at this point, I'm barely even conscious. I don't even know. I don't remember if he was stabbing me in my front, my back. I don't remember nothing. All I know is like I got stab wounds all over to this day. I covered a lot of them up with tattoos. Like, so, some of my tattoos are covering up some of my stab wounds because I couldn't afford plastic surgery. And even when I was offered free plastic surgery, I didn't take the offer. So he just starts like stabbing me up more. And at this point, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like, I couldn't fight him no more. At this time, I was already stabbed up about, God knows, like 16, 17, 15 times. Like, I don't even know. But I was already stabbed up and bleeding. My finger was chopped off already and everything. I couldn't stop him, So then when he started stabbing me up more, I just couldn't take it no more. So then a light bulb clicked in my head. And I'm like, girl, while he's stabbing me, I was quiet the whole time. Like, I couldn't speak. But then a light bulb clicked in my head. And it's like, girl, you better say something. Like, this is your life. That you're about to die. Like, you better say something. You better use your words to try to get you out of this. So then I just start telling him, like, babe, stop. I love you. I'm sorry. I was never going to leave you. But in reality, he already had punctured my lung. So he had punctured my lung. And I look behind me and all I see is blood splatting. It felt like if you punctured an air tire, a tire before, like that. But except I felt the warmness and stuff. And it's just like I felt like I could feel the air leaving my lung to where I couldn't even speak. So I was like, babe, stop. I love you. Like, I was struggling for every word. And I basically told him, like, I love you. I was never going to leave you. Like, please stop. Like, just call the cops and we'll just say that somebody robbed us. So when I said that, he kind of like started listening to me, and he's like, oh, so what are you going to say? I'll just say it's a black man came in here. Let's just say a black man came in here and he stabbed you. And I'm like, yes, baby. Like, I'm not going to tell on you. I promise. Like, and then I just started calling the shots from there on. Like, he turned into the old Sammy that just let me run the whole show and stuff, and he started listening to me. And he's just like, I'm like, babe, just take off everything, throw everything down the incinerator, go take a shower and call the cops. So long story short, he does everything that I tell him. And I just remember him kind of hesitating after he washed up and everything, or I don't remember if it was after he washed up or before he washed up. He kind of started hesitating on whether he was gonna let me live or not. Anyway, the last video cut off again. I'm sorry, my phone died. But he was basically debating whether he was gonna let me live or not. And he was like, oh, well, I'm gonna lay you on your back so you can die quicker. And he was talking about, I'm gonna lay you in the living room on your back so you can die quicker. And the living room was never in use. We never had a light bulb in there. Nobody just ever stayed in the living room or whatever. It was always dark in there. So trust me, the last place you want to be when you're dying is the dark, because it just makes it harder for you to stay awake and to stay alive. So, you know, while he picked me up like a baby, like this, you know, and while he was carrying me, he stopped in the middle of his tracks and he was like, I guess my cousin's body was on the floor, and he was like, look at your cousin, he's dead, look at your cousin's dead body. And I was like, what? No, like in my head, I'm like, what? I just knew that I wasn't able to see that. That would have really screwed me up mentally. Like, I just knew that I couldn't see that, so I just shut my eyes like this. I was like, okay, go. And he just like, after a while, he seen that I wasn't gonna look, and he just proceeded to take me to the living room. So he lays me in the living room, and then finally, while I'm in the living room, oh my God, I just knew I was gonna die. Like, it was dark, it was hard to stay awake, and like, when you're dying, the sleep just feels so good. It just feels so good. It just feels so much better to let go rather than to hold on and wake up and feel the pain and live in the horror that you're living at the moment and stuff like that. And I was just like, I just knew I was gonna die. So it's like at that very moment, my whole life like flashed in before my eyes. Like, I just started having flashbacks. It was just like in the span of like 2 minutes, my whole life from birth to where I was at now just flashed before my eyes. And I just remember like saying my prayers and telling God, like, please forgive me for all my sins. And wow, I can't believe this. Like, I'm still a child. I'm really about to die. Like, I'm like, dang, I'm a child. I'm only 16. Like, I'm 16. Like, I'm really about to die. Like, and so I remember just thinking like, dang, my mom is about to go crazy over this. I remember saying like, please God, don't let my mom go crazy over this, please. Like, and I just knew I was gonna die. And then finally he walks back in, and he's just like, comes to his senses, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go upstairs and go get Herman. Herman was one of the guys. He was also an addict, but he used to help manage the trap house. Like, my ex's sister's boyfriend's brother really trusted him, and he was like basically the manager, you know. And I remember when he it seemed like forever, but it took about maybe 5 minutes for Herman to come down. And when Herman first walked in that door, he looked at me, and he must have seen my dead cousin's body in front of him, because where the door was located, you could look to the side, that's where I was, and then in the front was where the kitchen was, leading to the bedrooms, where he probably seen my dead cousin's body. And his eyes were like this, and his skin turned pale, and he was just scared, and he was just like in shock. He was just staring at me like he couldn't move or say anything. And I'm like, Herman, what are you just gonna stand there? Like, save my life, like, call the cops, I'm dying, I can't take. He's like, wait, but there's drugs in here. And he was worried about like his job and, you know, like the drugs in there. And I'm like, Herman, what's more important, my life or the drugs? And as soon as I said that, he just walked out, and I guess he went and called the cops. And thank you, Herman, for calling the cops. I don't know if you're ever going to see this video. I don't even know if you're alive, because a lot of people I know are not even alive today. And thank you for really calling the cops. I don't think I ever got to say thank you to you, because I don't think I ever saw you again after that. But yeah, and so it took forever, but the ambulance finally came, and when they was just flashing lights in my eyes, and they were like asking me all these questions, and I wasn't able to speak. Like, I wasn't able to say anything. I just remember them. I remember, like, I was naked because like I mentioned in the Trapping Anonymous video, when I first told him that I didn't want to be with him no more, he just starts taking off. He's like, oh, for real? Oh, for real? And he took off a piece of clothing. I'm sorry, I forgot this detail when I was telling the story the first time. But he took off a piece of clothing. Like, I remember him taking off one of my shoes first. And he's like, oh, so you don't want to be with me? So, okay, leave like this. So I just went in the closet and I put on a different shoe. So I was getting ready to walk out. And I'm like, all right. Like, I'll leave like this. Like, so then he's like, oh, yeah. So as I got ready to go walk out the door, he'll just grab me and throw me back on the bed. Now he took off my shoes and my pants. And he's like, oh, leave like this now. So before he started stabbing me, he actually, like, played with me a little bit. Like, oh, like, are you serious? Like, you really trying to leave me? Like, nah, I think you joking. Like, okay, let me take off your shoes. Leave like this. Or, oh, word? Okay, now I'm taking off your pants, so leave like this. So I was so petty that I actually got up with no pants on and nothing. I'm like, you think I won't go to the hallway and start yelling help, help, help and stuff? Like, I'm not playing. Like, I don't want to be with you no more. And for some reason, I was joking around, but I was serious at the same time. But I was joking around. Like, deep down inside, I don't think I was going nowhere, because it was cold as heck. We had no money. Like, I had nowhere to go besides my mom's house, which was on the other side of the Bronx. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, where was I going? You know what I mean? So the little girl in me was still joking, even though I just started getting like a bad feeling. I'm sorry, back to the details that I left out. I just started getting like a bad feeling, like the house was gonna get raided and stuff. And that's when I had the conversation with him, and I'm like, Sammy, I don't want to be with you no more. I don't, like, I just can't, I just can't take this. Like, I just want to go turn myself in. Like, I'm actually on the run from the cops. Things are really bad right now. We barely don't have money for food. Then, you know, my cousin is here. My cousin had left for a couple days, just like he used to come to my house the whole time I knew him and then leave. He had left. He had stayed. My cousin, my boyfriend was treating him bad, and just like, cause he just didn't like my cousin because of the story I told him. He was just like being so mean to him, which I think caused my cousin to leave. But my cousin used to leave anyway, for real, all the time, and then come back. But that same night, my cousin had came back, and he came knocking on the door. I guess he didn't have nowhere else to go, and he came back, and he was like, you know, we opened the door for him, and it was like late at night. So I was just like, here, cuz, just here, you can have this room right here. Like, here's a blanket, and, you know, go to good night. Like, and basically before I shut the door, I was like, hey, you know, because I felt sorry for him because my boyfriend was just being mean to him, and I thought that was one of the reasons why he left and stuff. And I was just like, hey, you know, blood is thicker than water. Like, I got your back, like, you know. And I was basically telling him that because I wanted him to feel protected against my boyfriend. Like, I didn't just want him to think that I just brung him around for him to be mistreated or anything like that, you know. So long story short, yeah, so long story short, yeah, I forgot to say that detail. And then, yeah, sorry, my brain just went everywhere. But every time, I just don't want to, after this video, I'm never mentioning this story ever again. Like, it's over. Like, it drains my energy each and every time. I just can't no more. I can't keep reliving this. It's just thinking about my cousin. I think about him every day. And even the guy that stabbed me, I got to live with the guilt of them being gone because of me, basically. And yeah, so, but long story short, I left that detail out. And yeah, my cousin came back that night, and that's when we got into the whole argument and stuff like that. So then, yeah, I told you how he basically took off most of my clothes. So by the time he started stabbing me, I was just in a pair of panties I remember, and completely naked. And that was the last time he asked me. He was like, okay, so you think I'm joking with you now? Like, you if you really gonna leave me, leave like this. And when I showed him that I was gonna still leave in my panties, that really pushed him to the edge. He was just like, well, if I can't have you, nobody can have you. Like, like, this is not a joke. Like, and for some reason, I just didn't think to take him serious. I never thought that he was gonna harm me. So yeah. So then now, I just remember that the ambulance, they put me on a stretcher, and they was taking my lifeless body. Like, my soul was leaving my body. I couldn't hold on anymore. I just remember like trying to stay awake as much as possible, but the sleep was taking over. And I just remember like they took it was cold, it was winter time, it was January 20th, it was snowing, and I was naked, and they just took my body naked out in a stretcher. I remember my arm was hanging off the stretcher, and as they was taking me out on the first floor, they banged my arm and everything. Like, they were really rushing me out of that building. And I just remember going into the ambulance, and kind of like just letting go. Like, I remember them asking me my name, and then they asked me who did this to me, and I said Samuel Encarnacion. And then after that, I completely let go. And then I woke up in the hospital, and immediately, as soon as I woke up, I had all these feds and cops trying to question me and stuff, and they let me know that they had him in custody. The reason they had him in custody was because he was the only suspect at the scene of the crime, and he stuck to the story about the black man walking up in there trying to stab me and stuff like that. And I at that point couldn't really give them too much information because I couldn't really remember. So I just remember telling them this story about how he was jealous over the puppy, and that's why he stabbed me and stuff like that. So that's the story that's in the newspapers. If you guys want to read up on the story, you can you Google Ofelia Torres and Samuel Encarnacion, or BX Puppy Slain, and you'll see the different stories that they had. They had like different stories in each newspaper and stuff like that. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna make a part 2 on why I stayed in touch with him and what happened after the stabbing and stuff like that, because this video is long enough. So please stay tuned. This is probably my last video for tonight, but I just wanted to catch you guys up with some fresh content. And yeah, you guys can stay tuned, guys.